On September 25, 2025, after decades in exile, Assata Shakur passed away in Havana, Cuba, at the age of 78. The Cuban Foreign Ministry attributed her death to health conditions and old age. Her passing instantly reopened debates about her life, the activism, the turnpike shooting, the trial, the escape, and the exile. It also reminded us of what was lost along the way: lives, trust, and questions that were too heavy to settle. Assata was born Joanne Deborah Byron in Queens, New York in 1947. Her parents divorced when she was small, and she spent her childhood moving between relatives. In Wilmington, North Carolina, she lived under Jim Crow segregation. Returning to New York, she found that racism looked a bit different, but was still present in schools, housing, and job opportunities. This dual experience of South and North sharpened her awareness of inequality. In 1967, she married Louis Chesimard. The marriage ended quickly, but she kept the last name, which is why legal documents listed her as Joanne Chesimard. Later, during her incarceration, she gave birth to her daughter, Assata Shakur. Being a mother behind bars added another layer of hardship. Years later, after her escape, Assata joined her in Cuba. Assata joined the Black Panther Party, known for community programs like free breakfast for kids, as well as its stance against police brutality. At the same time, the FBI ran COINTELPRO, a secret effort to infiltrate and disrupt groups it deemed as radical. Targets included civil rights leaders, anti-war activists, and especially the Panthers. Assata came under that spotlight, accused in connection with robberies and violent incidents. Some charges didn't stick, but the reputation followed her. She later became involved with the Black Liberation Army, which believed armed struggle was necessary to combat systemic racism. On May 2, 1973, Assata traveled with Assata Shakur, a close comrade she considered family, and Sundiata Acoli, a respected former Panther. State troopers Werner Forster and James Harper stopped their car on the New Jersey Turnpike. A confrontation erupted. Gunfire was exchanged. When it ended, Assata Shakur had lost his life, Trooper Harper was injured, and Trooper Werner Forster was fatally wounded. Assata was shot twice during the confrontation. One bullet hit her arm and shattered her clavicle, leaving that arm paralyzed. Doctors testified that her injuries would have made it physically impossible for her to hold, aim, and fire a gun in the way prosecutors claim. She was essentially incapacitated almost immediately after being struck. Police conducted a neutron activation analysis on her hands after the shootout. Results showed no traces of gunshot residue, which strongly suggested she had not fired a weapon that night. Prosecutors downplayed this, but for supporters it became a cornerstone of the claim that she was wrongfully convicted. The bullets that fatally struck Trooper Werner Forster were never conclusively tied to the weapon associated with Assata. Multiple guns were present at the scene, but forensic tests did not clearly establish hers as the source of the fatal shots. For Forster's family, that night marked the beginning of a lifetime of absence. His wife and young child were suddenly left without a husband and a father. Every trial, every appeal, every headline that followed carried his name, a reminder of what they had lost. In 1977, after long delays, her trial began under Judge Theodore Appleby in Middlesex County. Surrounded by security, the proceedings were tense. Prosecutors argued her presence made her accountable. The defense said she was being politically targeted. The judge convicted her in connection with the death of Trooper Forster, and she received life in prison plus 33 years. 2 years later, in 1979, on November 2nd, members of the Black Liberation Army launched a daring escape. With smuggled weapons, they overpowered guards at the Clinton Correctional Facility for Women and drove off with Assata in a van. Those involved included Mutulu Shakur, Sekou Odinga, and Sylvia Barodini. They saw it as rescuing a comrade from an unjust system. By 1984, Assata appeared in Cuba, where Fidel Castro's government granted her political asylum. Castro said she was a victim of persecution in the U.S. For Cuba, it was also a Cold War message, defying the U.S. by protecting someone on its most wanted list. In Cuba, Assata wrote Assata, an autobiography, raised her daughter, and lived under protection. Back in the U.S., she remained a priority for law enforcement. In 2013, she became the first woman on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list, with a $2 million reward for her capture. Her story is filled with contradictions. To law enforcement, she was a fugitive responsible for a state trooper's loss of life. To supporters, she was a political exile who endured injustice. To her daughter, she was simply a mother. The debates around her legacy remain unresolved. What's certain is that her life reflected the tensions of her era: racial conflict, state power, activism, and survival. For a girl in Queens, to a young activist, to a woman on the run, and finally an exile in Havana, Assata Shakur's story is one of the most debated in modern American history. Her passing in 2025 closed one chapter, but reopened the conversation about justice, memory, and what it means to resist. In November 2015, a monument was dedicated in East Brunswick, New Jersey, to honor Trooper Warner Forster, the New Jersey State Police officer who was fatally wounded in a shootout that night. The ceremony attracted state police officials, family members, and community leaders. The monument is near the site of the original incident.